Picture this: some rich, arrogant punk barges into your house, claiming he's taking your wife away for a couple of nights. To top it off, he's tossing out threats like he's untouchable. My gut reaction? I wanted to wipe that smug grin off his face, maybe land a few punches to knock him down a peg. But I held back. It had already been a rough Thursday afternoon for me as I loaded up my tools in the back of my truck. I'd been working with a client for 3 weeks on a staircase project, and they couldn't make up their mind. Every few days, they'd change the design, and that morning, they hit me with another request that would mean redoing most of what I'd already finished. And if that wasn't bad enough, I had to get the architect and engineer involved again to adjust the plans. So, thanks to all that mess, my Friday turned into an unexpected day off. I'm Adam Daniels, owner of a small woodworking business specializing in luxury staircases. My clients are mostly wealthy homeowners, hotels, restaurants, and offices, people who don't flinch at spending $30,000 or more for a custom piece. I'm 33, and I've been married to Sarah Bennett, who's 29, for 4 years. Sarah's an attorney at Rogers, Reed & Turner, a firm that deals with commercial and intellectual property law. We don't have any kids yet. Sarah's focused on her career for now. That day, when I got home, I noticed Sarah's car was already in the driveway, which was odd because she usually worked late on Thursdays to wrap up things early on Fridays. I came in through the back door, like always, after a long day at the job site. Right away, I noticed the water pressure seemed off. It struck me as odd that Sarah was in the shower at that hour. She usually showered in the morning or late at night. After I changed into some more comfortable clothes, I headed upstairs to see why she was home early. Sure enough, Sarah had just finished showering. She was standing there, slipping into black fishnet stockings. A new black dress was laid out on the bed, ready to be worn. "Hey, babe, you're home early. Did I miss something? Are we going somewhere tonight?" I asked, a little confused. Her face threw me off. She had this uneasy expression I wasn't used to seeing. She let out a sigh before she finally spoke. "No, Adam, you didn't miss anything. I'm going out tonight, but you're not. I'll be gone until Sunday. I'm spending the weekend with Ben Rogers." I blinked, not sure if I heard her right. "What do you mean? Is this some kind of work thing?" "No, it's not work. Ben booked us a suite at the hotel. I'll be back next week," she said, her voice firm like she'd already rehearsed it. My head was spinning. "You've got to be joking. You're my wife. There's no way I'm okay with you spending the weekend with another man. What's going on?" She let out a cold laugh. "You better get used to it, Adam, because that's what Ben wants. And believe me, you don't want to cross him." I stood there, stunned, anger rising. "You really expect me to just sit back and let you run off for the weekend with some other guy, and then come home like everything's normal?" Sarah's eyes sparkled with a hint of malice as she shrugged. "Ben's made it clear this won't be the last time, so yes, you'll just have to deal with it. Your life will be a lot easier if you go along." I clenched my fists, trying to keep my temper in check. "We'll see about that. I'm not going to just roll over and let some entitled jerk dictate my life. You might want to think long and hard about what you're doing because I won't be pushed around." She didn't say anything after that, just kept getting dressed while I stormed downstairs and grabbed a beer from the fridge. That's when I saw it. A shiny Mercedes pulled up outside, and wouldn't you know it, out steps Mr. Cocky himself. "Adam, that's Ben. Can you get the door?" Sarah called from upstairs. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I walked to the back door, punched in the alarm code, and discreetly set my phone to record, tucking it into my shirt pocket. I settled onto the couch, bracing for what was coming. I'd known Ben Rogers ever since Sarah started at Rogers, Reed & Turner. He was always hovering around, a guy in his late 30s with this magnetic but overbearing vibe. Charming with his colleagues, but when it came to their spouses, he had this arrogance that rubbed me the wrong way. We'd never hit it off. Sarah came down the stairs and opened the door. "Apologies for the wait, Ben," she said softly, using a tone I'd never heard from her before. She whispered something to him, but I couldn't make out the words. Then, with that same smug grin I'd come to hate, Ben strolled into the living room like he owned the place. "Hey, Adam. I hear you've got an issue with Sarah spending the weekend with me," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. I glared at him, trying to hold back my anger. "Get out of my house before I call the police," I growled, my voice barely steady. He let out a laugh, glancing at Sarah, who gave him a knowing smirk. "Call the police? And what exactly are they going to do, Adam?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." He paused, his eyes narrowing as he noticed the bulge of my phone in my pocket. "You recording me, Adam?" He lunged to grab the phone, but it was locked. Frustrated, he threw it to the floor, shattering it. "Listen here, you smartass," he hissed, his voice dropping. "Your wife is spending the weekend with me whether you like it or not. You don't get a say in this, understand?" I got up, ready to throw him out, but he leaned in close, his voice dark and threatening. "And if you so much as think about interfering, I'll make sure you regret it. Be a good little husband and keep your mouth shut. 'Cause any trouble, and you'll be sorry." I listened to his threats, trying my best to keep my face blank, even though my mind was racing with 100 different ways to respond. Every part of me wanted to knock him out right there, but I held back. He was playing a game, and if I wanted to get the upper hand, I needed to play it smart. "I've never been mixed up in money laundering or anything illegal, let alone anything involving kids," I said, keeping my voice calm as I shrugged off his accusations. But Ben wasn't backing down. His persistence was unnerving. "That could be easily arranged," he replied coolly. "Uploading something like that onto your computer? Child's play. I have the kind of access that could destroy your life in a heartbeat." His words hung in the air, heavy with menace. I decided to push back, trying to poke holes in his threats. "So you're telling me you already have that kind of stuff? Isn't that a crime?" I asked, hoping to shake his confidence. He just smirked, completely unfazed. "That's the difference between you and me," he sneered. "What's illegal for you doesn't apply to people like me. When you've got the right connections, the rules don't matter." He wasn't finished. He made sure to throw in a warning about seeking revenge and even tossed out a disgusting comment about my relationship with Sarah, his words as vile as they were deliberate. As I sat there, trying to process the sheer absurdity of what was happening, I felt like I was stuck in some twisted nightmare. My emotions were all over the place: anger, disbelief, disgust. But despite the madness, I found one thing that gave me some peace of mind: my security system. After a break-in a few years ago, I'd had the entire house wired with audio and video surveillance. Sarah had no idea, and the phone Ben had smashed. Just a decoy. I was ready for this. When Ben and Sarah finally walked out the door, the full weight of the situation crashed down on me. As furious and shocked as I was, there was a small sense of relief mixed in. I now had hard evidence, proof of his threats and manipulation, something that would come in handy if I decided to push for a divorce. I gathered the broken pieces of the phone Ben had smashed. It was my business phone, one I'd bought specifically for dealing with those demanding clients who acted like they owned my time 24/7. At least my personal phone was safe, so I wasn't completely cut off from the world. I dialed Sam, my lawyer and closest friend. Sam Cooper had been married to my older sister, Emily, before tragedy struck. Emily had drowned during a trip to the coast 4 years into their marriage. Even through his grief, Sam stayed close to our family, earning our respect and love. 3 years later, he met Jessica, and they tied the knot after a year of dating. Sarah and I had gone to their wedding, and to this day, Sam and Jessica feel like family to me. I explained everything that had happened: the threats, Ben's audacity, and Sarah's betrayal. Sam wasted no time in offering his support. He told me to sit tight, turn off all communication devices, and promised that he and Jessica would be over in an hour with dinner. His calm, steady advice was exactly what I needed in that moment. As I sat there waiting, my mind replayed the whirlwind of the day's events. Sarah had always been driven and ambitious, but I never thought she'd fall for someone like Ben just because of his power. It was a bitter pill to swallow, realizing our marriage wasn't as solid as I had believed. Sarah and I had met 5 years ago at a birthday party for a friend's brother, an army officer stationed overseas. I didn't know many people at the party, but we struck up a conversation, and things clicked right away. One date quickly turned into many, and within a year, we were married. Back then, I was working for Mr. Johnson, a well-known local carpenter. Frank Johnson was a woodworking genius but terrible at managing his business. I had started working for him as a part-time accountant while I was still in college. Soon after, he landed a few big contracts and needed extra hands on the job. That's how I got into woodworking, running errands, fetching supplies, and helping out with the heavy stuff. I picked up the trade quickly and eventually took on projects by myself. After earning my certification, I became his partner. When Mr. Johnson retired, my parents helped me buy out his share, and I've been running the business ever since. Despite my success, most of Sarah's colleagues at Rogers, Reed, and Turner didn't think much of me, just another tradesman, in their eyes. It didn't bother me, though. My business was doing great, and I had recently hired 2 new assistants. My income was higher than most of the lawyers at the firm, though even Sarah didn't know just how well things were going for me. My thoughts were interrupted when Sam and Jessica arrived, Chinese takeout in hand, along with a couple of cold beers. Jessica pulled me into a hug as soon as she stepped in. "How are you holding up, Adam?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. "I still can't believe Sarah did this," Sam added, giving me a strong hug. "This isn't like her at all." "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." I nodded, trying to sound calm. "Let's eat first, and then we'll check out the footage." After dinner, I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the surveillance video. The footage was crystal clear, every arrogant word, every threat, and every smug remark Ben had made played back for us, plain as day. "I can't believe what I just heard," Sam said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Arrogant jerk, huh?" I replied. "Arrogant? Try clueless," Sam corrected me. "This guy's been practicing law for 15 years, but he's so full of himself, he doesn't even realize he's digging his own grave. Your decoy phone trick worked like a charm. He thought he was in the clear, but now we've got all the evidence we need. But can we actually use it?" "I mean, he didn't know he was being recorded," I asked, still unsure about the legal side of things. "Adam, this is your house. You've got every right to record what happens under your own roof," Sam assured me. "So, I'm in the clear?" I asked, still trying to process everything. "Well, not exactly," Sam replied, his tone cautious. "We've got to be careful." While Jessica was driving over here, I did a little digging. Turns out our buddy Ben is none other than the son of the founder of Rogers, Reed, and Turner. I nodded, already knowing about Ben's family ties. It was no secret that his father, Paul Rogers, had built the firm's reputation from the ground up. "What you might not know," Sam continued, "is that Paul wasn't much of a lawyer, but he was extremely well connected. Most of the judges in town were his college buddies. With that kind of network, winning cases became a breeze. Sadly, Ben's been walking the same path, and that's what makes him dangerous." Sam's concern was clear. Ben's got a lot of judges in his pocket. If he decides to take this to court, it'll be tough to get a ruling in our favor, even though he's doing something blatantly illegal. "So, no matter what I do, I'm stuck?" I asked, the weight of the situation starting to hit me hard. "Not quite," Sam said, offering a bit of hope. It's going to be difficult, but not impossible. I've got some solid connections too. The key is building up enough evidence to put the pressure on him. I took a deep breath, feeling a little more at ease but still rattled. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I turned to see a petite brunette standing outside on the porch. "Hi, Mr. Daniels," she greeted me politely. "Come on in, Erin," Sam called, waving her inside. "Adam, this is Erin Davis, a computer specialist we work with at the private investigative firm." I reached out to her after we talked earlier. Erin didn't waste any time. We quickly filled her in on the situation, especially Ben's threat to plant incriminating material on my computer. Erin listened closely and then laid out her plan. "Okay, there are two main ways they might try to pull this off," she began, all business. "First, they could come here when you're not home, likely with your wife's help, and physically access your computer. They'd change the timestamps, upload the files, and make it look like you'd done it long before Ben even showed up. If that's their plan, your security cameras should catch everything, so make sure they're set to record daily before you leave for work." She pulled out a small gray box from her bag. "The second option is remote access. They might try to hack into your computer and plant the files that way. This device will monitor your modem and router, tracking any unauthorized access attempts, whether they're trying to upload or download files. Before I set this up, though, you'll need to transfer all your sensitive files onto a flash drive and wipe your computer clean," she advised. "The goal is to leave nothing for them to tamper with." "I'll help you with that to make sure we don't miss anything," Erin added confidently, her expertise shining through. Sam jumped in, laying it out clearly. "Here's the thing, Adam. Right now, the best evidence we have is the recording of Ben's threats. That's good, but blackmail alone might not be enough. People don't take blackmail as seriously as you'd think, and his judge buddies might just dismiss it. What we really need is for Ben to follow through with his plan and plant the illegal material on your computer. If he does that and then tries to pin it on you with the cops, we'll have a digital trail, and combined with the recording, it'll be obvious that he set you up." I shook my head in disbelief. "That's messed up." "Yeah, well, so is Ben," Sam replied grimly. "One more thing, don't use your computer for the next few days. If Ben does decide to go through with this, the cops might want to look at your computer's activity. If you haven't touched it, the logs will prove the files were uploaded without your involvement. Also, keep your phone off the home Wi-Fi, just to cover all bases." Erin quickly got to work setting up the surveillance module and wiping all the sensitive data from my computer and phone. "The module will send us copies of any access attempts," she explained, packing up her gear. "I'll stay in touch with Sam. Good luck, guys." After Erin left, Sam turned to me. "So, do you want to start the divorce process now, or wait until Sarah gets back and see if there's any way to salvage things?" "No," I said firmly. "I want out, and I want out now. I can't be with someone who's that easily manipulated by a guy like Ben. There's no point in pretending this can be fixed." "Got it," Sam said with a nod. "I'll reach out to Catherine Jones first thing tomorrow. She's our top family law attorney, fair, efficient, and fast. You'll hear from her soon." The rest of the night was spent hashing out the details. I gave Sam access to my security system so he could monitor everything remotely if needed. By the time Sam and Jessica left around 10 p.m., I was exhausted. I took a melatonin and knocked out within half an hour. The next morning, Catherine Jones called right on time, 8:30 sharp. Sam had already filled her in on my situation, and she asked me to come by her office before noon. When we met, Catherine was empathetic, especially after hearing more about Ben's reputation. She reassured me that since I'd bought the house before marrying Sarah, it was solely mine, her name wasn't on the deed, so there was no chance she could claim the property. With no kids involved, Catherine said the divorce process should be relatively simple. I also asked about my business, whether I'd be forced to sell and split the profits. Catherine shook her head confidently. Don't worry. Your marriage contract makes it clear the company belongs to you. She has no legal right to it. They might try to push something, but there's no basis for it. We wrapped up by 1:45 p.m., and Catherine promised that Sarah would be served with divorce papers at her office on Monday. That afternoon, I replaced the smashed phone and spent the rest of the weekend busying myself with yard work, anything to keep my mind occupied. My anger toward Sarah was there, bubbling under the surface, but I hadn't fully processed everything. I knew the sadness over our marriage ending would hit me eventually, but for now, I was just too overwhelmed. I dreaded her return on Sunday. Should I sleep in the guest room or make her stay there? In the end, the choice was simple. It was my house, and she had abandoned me. I wasn't going to share my bed with her again. I moved all her things into the guest room and put a new lock on my bedroom door. The key stayed with me. Later that evening, I heard Ben's car pull up outside. I watched through the window as Sarah leaned in for a long, lingering kiss before waving him off. I sat in the living room, pretending to read, not even glancing up when she finally walked through the door. How was your weekend? Sarah asked, trying to sound casual, but her voice betrayed a hint of anxiety. I kept my eyes on the book. Fine, I replied flatly. Go ahead and sulk, she sneered. Ben said you'd act like this, like a child who can't handle reality. She turned and headed upstairs, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. I counted under my breath. 1, 2, 3. Adam, did you put a lock on our bedroom? She shouted, her voice sharp. Correction, I said, staying calm. It's my bedroom now. Your things are in the guest room. You'll be staying there until you find somewhere else. What the hell? Just wait until Ben hears about this. This wasn't part of the deal. Deal? I spat back. What deal? I never agreed to anything. You can either stay in the guest room or leave. Maybe Ben's wife will let you crash at their place. Without saying another word, she stormed into the guest room and slammed the door. I followed her upstairs, my voice rising as I yelled through the door. Speaking of deals, what exactly was in this for me? Silence. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. What's this I'm hearing, cuck? You won't let Sarah into her own room? I thought I made myself clear. Even someone like you should get that. I'll let this little outburst slide tonight, but tomorrow, you'll make Sarah her favorite dinner and apologize for your behavior. Play nice for the rest of the week, and I'll allow her to be intimate with you next weekend. Fail to follow my instructions, and I'll make sure you understand just how real my threats are. Got it? I stared at the message, barely believing the sheer audacity. The arrogance and delusion were almost laughable, if it didn't make me feel so sick. Instead of replying, I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Sam. His response came in almost immediately. Unreal. This guy really thinks he's untouchable. Keep the messages intact and don't respond. Ben sent a few more texts, but I ignored them, refusing to engage. After a while, the messages stopped. I didn't see Sarah for the rest of the night, and when I went to bed, I made sure to lock my door and leave the security system recording. The next morning, I woke up after Sarah had already left. She'd showered in the guest bathroom and left without a word, not touching anything in the kitchen. I made myself some breakfast and downloaded the footage from the previous night, finding nothing unusual. For once, she hadn't tried anything with my computer. A text from Catherine Jones pinged on my phone, confirming that the divorce papers would be served at 10 a.m. I let Sam know, and he sent back a thumbs up. Before heading to the shop, I double-checked that the security system was running and set it to send alerts to my phone in case anything happened. I had a meeting scheduled with an architect at noon to finalize some plans for a client, so I kept myself busy with smaller tasks until then. I fully expected a call from Sarah after she got served the papers, but it never came. By 11:40, I was surprised I hadn't heard anything. I sent a message to Sam. Sarah hasn't reached out yet. Weird. He replied quickly. She's probably already talked to Ben about the papers. They might be planning something. I'll get Aaron involved. Stay tuned. The meeting with the architect went smoothly, and I was able to stay focused. I spent the rest of the afternoon organizing my tools and cleaning up the shop, trying to keep my mind off everything. Then, around 2:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with an alert. It was a message from Sam. It's happening. I quickly pulled up the security feed from my house. Sarah had come back, but she wasn't alone, there was a man with her I didn't recognize. They went straight to my office, and he wasted no time booting up my computer. He didn't say much, but within a few minutes, he cracked my password and plugged in a flash drive. He was on my computer for about 15 minutes, doing who knows what. Thankfully, the camera caught a perfect shot of his face. While he worked, Sarah went into the guest room and started stuffing her things into garbage bags, probably because her suitcases were still in the master bedroom closet. Once the guy was done with my computer, he told Sarah he was leaving, and she followed shortly after, bags in hand. Sam called me the second the recording ended. All right, Adam. Head home and act like everything's business as usual. My guess is they'll report this to the cops tonight or tomorrow, so be prepared for a visit. It takes a few hours to get a search warrant, so expect them by tomorrow morning. Could they actually arrest me? I asked, the anxiety tightening in my chest. There's a chance. If it happens, stay quiet, don't answer any questions. I've already spoken to Henry Coleman, a solid criminal defense attorney. He's seen all the footage and says it should be an easy case to handle. We went over a few more details, and I gave Sam access to my security system in case I ended up behind bars. By the time we wrapped up the call, I felt a bit more prepared, though the tension was still gnawing at me. The evening went by without incident, no cops, no calls from Sarah, and no more threats from Ben. I made a sandwich and tried to relax in front of the TV, debating whether I should tell my parents what was going on. In the end, I decided against it. Explaining surveillance systems and digital evidence to my mom would just stress her out, and I wasn't up for that. The next day, while I was out running errands, I got another notification, this time, an intruder alert. I quickly texted Sam and pulled up the live feed. The police had entered my house and were trying to disable the alarm. A few moments later, they succeeded, and the system went dark. Sam texted me back to say he'd captured everything and had already sent it to Henry. About an hour and a half later, 2 officers showed up at my shop and arrested me. They cuffed me, read me my rights, and took me down to the station. I followed Sam's advice and kept quiet, refusing to answer any of their questions. After processing me, they took my phone and wallet and threw me into a holding cell with a few other guys. Everyone kept to themselves, staring at the floor. After about 2.5 hours, a guard came and told me I had a visitor. They led me to a small room, and I expected to see my lawyer. Instead, there was Ben Rogers, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. He sat across from me without saying a word at first, just soaking in the moment. I didn't break eye contact, determined not to give him any satisfaction. When he was finally done with his little power play, he leaned forward, that smug smile still plastered on his face. "Now do you get how serious this is?" he asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. I stayed silent. "I asked you a question, Daniels," he growled, his tone more aggressive. "Answer me." I refused to give him anything. "It's going to be your word against mine, a carpenter versus one of the most powerful lawyers in town. Take a guess how that'll turn out." He stood up, clearly enjoying himself. "I'll let you think about that overnight. Maybe spending some time in this cell will help you see the situation you're in." With that, he walked out, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I was taken back to the cell, which was emptier than before. It was late afternoon when the guard returned to escort me to another meeting room. This time, to my relief, a tall blond man was waiting for me. "Adam Daniels, good to meet you. I'm Henry Coleman, your defense attorney. Sam contacted me earlier when he couldn't get a hold of you. We figured you might have been taken in." I filled Henry in on everything that had happened, including Ben's little visit. His jaw tightened as I spoke, but he let me finish without interrupting. "All right," he said finally. "You'll be seeing a judge tomorrow. Expect a hefty bail, but Sam's already on top of that. It's going to be a rough night, but hang in there, we've got you covered. Keep refusing to answer any questions, and I'll deal with Ben." The next morning, I found myself standing before the judge, facing charges of possessing illegal materials involving children. The weight of that accusation hung heavy, but I stood my ground and pleaded not guilty. As Henry had predicted, the bail was set high, $117,000, but Sam wasted no time pulling together the funds. By the afternoon, I was released, though with strict conditions. I wasn't allowed to leave the city or contact Sarah, Ben Rogers, or anyone connected to their firm. At least I was still allowed to work in my shop. Once I was out, they handed back my phone and wallet. Henry took me to lunch, and as we sat down to plates of fried chicken, the tension started to lift, even if only slightly. But the enormity of what had happened still hung over me like a dark cloud. "I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much info yesterday," Henry said, pausing to take a drink of iced tea. "Confidentiality and all. But I've been digging into Ben Rogers, and I've learned a lot." "Like what?" I asked, curiosity creeping in despite the exhaustion. "Well, for starters," Henry said, leaning in, his expression growing serious, "it usually takes hours to get a search warrant, and only after that can they review what they find and then get an arrest warrant. In your case, they hauled you in before they'd even finished searching the place." I blinked. "So, you're saying they jumped the gun?" "Exactly," Henry confirmed, his voice sharp. "And another thing, despite the no-contact order with anyone involved in the case, Ben was allowed to see you. That's highly unusual and points to this being staged. And that, my friend, is flat out illegal." I frowned, thinking back to what Sam had told me. "But Sam said Ben's got a lot of pull with the judges." Henry gave me a reassuring smile. "Not with all of them. Guys like Ben make plenty of enemies on the way up. We just need to be smart about how we handle this." Later that afternoon, I finally made my way back to the shop, grabbed my car, and headed home. After the past few days, all I wanted was a hot shower and some peace. But when I walked in, I found the place completely trashed, cabinets yanked open, papers scattered across the floor, drawers overturned. The police had torn through everything. Still, I wasn't worried. Aaron had wiped my computer clean, leaving nothing for them to find. As I cleaned up, the weight of it all came crashing down. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to break down. Just a week ago, I thought I had a stable marriage and a solid life. Now I was accused of a crime I didn't commit, my wife had turned on me, and her boss was doing everything he could to destroy my life. How had it all unraveled so fast? The one silver lining was that the media hadn't caught wind of it yet. They were too busy covering a massive scandal involving billions in public funds gone missing, so I stayed off the radar. That was one small mercy. By the time the weekend rolled around, I threw myself into work, letting Sam and Henry handle the legal battle. Toward the end of the following week, Henry called with news that left me speechless. "All the charges against you have been dropped," Henry said, his voice calm and steady. I blinked, struggling to process what I'd just heard. "Wait, what? How?" "Turns out the inspector assigned to your case isn't a fan of blackmail. She saw right through Ben's little scheme." I let out a long, shaky breath. "And what about Ben?" "Well," Henry continued, "she's filed charges against him for blackmail, evidence tampering, and possession of illegal material. As for Sarah, she's facing conspiracy charges. I went quiet, trying to take it all in. Sarah would face justice too. It was a lot to wrap my head around, but it felt like a step toward closure. Not long after I hung up with Henry, Sam called and invited me over for dinner that evening. He and Jessica had been my rock through this whole mess, and I was grateful for their support. As I was driving to their place, another call came through, this time from Catherine Jones, my family law attorney. Adam, I wanted to let you know Sarah's lawyer reached out today. She's ready to sign the divorce papers without making any changes. That's great news, I said, feeling the weight lift a little more. Finally, a fresh start was within reach. There's just one condition, Catherine added. Sarah's asking for a 90-minute private meeting with you. She's suggesting it take place at my office. The last thing I wanted was to sit down with Sarah after everything that had happened, but if it meant speeding up the divorce, it might be worth it. I told Catherine to set it up, and we scheduled the meeting for the following Wednesday. That evening, I allowed myself to relax for the first time in weeks, enjoying a peaceful dinner with Sam and Jessica. For a few hours, I felt something close to normal. Jessica had made coconut shrimp with rice, and we spent the night chatting about anything but legal drama and betrayals. It was the break I didn't know I needed. By the time I got home, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, peace. Even though the storm seemed to be clearing, the thought of the upcoming meeting with Sarah gnawed at me. Despite everything she'd done, I couldn't shake the anxiety of facing her again. When Wednesday finally came, I made my way to Catherine's office. She greeted me at the door with a word of caution. Adam, I don't know what Sarah's true intentions are for this meeting, but I have to warn you, she's still facing criminal charges. Don't say anything that could be used against you in court. We can't search her for a recording device, so assume she might be recording the conversation. Understand? I nodded, grateful for the heads up. Catherine led me to a small private room where Sarah was already seated. I'd braced myself to face the cold, indifferent woman I'd come to know over the past few weeks, but the person sitting across from me looked completely different. Her face was gaunt, her eyes swollen and red from crying. For a brief second, I felt a flicker of sympathy rise up in me, but the memory of her betrayal snuffed it out as quickly as it came. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Adam, she said, her voice shaky like the words were too heavy to speak. I kept my expression hard. What could you possibly have to say to me, Sarah, after everything? Her tears started to fall as she struggled to find her words. I'm ashamed of what I've done to you. You were a good husband, better than I deserved. I was completely wrapped up in Ben's influence, and I couldn't see what was happening. When I found out the charges against you were dropped, and that we're the ones facing prosecution, it was like a slap in the face. I realized how blind I'd been. I can't even stand to look at myself anymore. For the next 45 minutes, she poured out her heart, offering a raw, impromptu self-reflection. She didn't ask for forgiveness, which I appreciated, because it was clear she understood just how deep her betrayal had cut. I know it's over between us, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper now. If I were in your shoes, I'd want a divorce too. I don't blame you for ending things. I've already resigned from my job, and I've told Ben I never want to see him again. I've moved back in with my parents, and let's just say, they're not exactly thrilled with me. Home's pretty cold right now. I sat there in silence, watching her. There wasn't much left to say. She had made her decisions, and now she had to face the fallout. Any chance of reconciliation had been shattered. There was no going back. The next few months are going to be rough for me, Adam, she added, her eyes barely meeting mine. I don't know where I'll go from here, but maybe, down the road, we could at least be friends. I shook my head slightly. That's a long way off, Sarah. Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. Good luck. Without waiting for her to respond, I stood and walked out of the room. A part of me still felt something for her, but I knew there was no fixing what had been broken. Life had already punished her enough. There was no need for me to add to it. In the end, Sarah struck a plea deal, agreeing to testify against Ben in exchange for leniency. She moved to another city after that, and we lost touch. When Ben's crimes became public, 2 other men came forward, accusing him of blackmail as well. He was convicted and sentenced to 11 years in prison. I didn't even have to testify, as the evidence, including the recordings I'd made, was enough to seal his fate. After his conviction, I filed a civil case against Ben and his law firm, securing a $1.5 million settlement. A good portion of that went to Sam for all the help and support he'd given me throughout this ordeal. It was a well-deserved reward for someone who had stood by me every step of the way. As for me, life went on. My business continued to grow, and I was in the process of acquiring a small door manufacturing company to expand my operations. With 6 employees who felt like family, I was in a good place. Not long after my divorce was finalized, Sam and Jessica invited me over for a barbecue. It was at that barbecue where I met Jessica's sister, Olivia. We hit it off right away, and we've been together ever since. A few weeks after settling the civil case, I decided to pay Ben a visit in prison. I wanted to see him face to face, to show him that he hadn't broken me. I told the guard to make sure Ben stayed for the whole conversation, and when I sat down across from him, I couldn't help but smirk. As soon as Ben saw me, his face twisted with disgust. "What do you want, cuck?" he sneered, starting to stand, but the guard quickly pushed him back into his seat. I ignored his jab and kept my tone casual. "Oh, I just wanted to check in. Heard your wife, Chloe, filed for divorce. Maybe I should take her out sometime, show her a real good time." His face went bright red, his fists clenched tight. "You bastard. If you even..." I cut him off with a bigger grin. "Save it. I already did. And by the way, that little dove tattoo on her thigh. Yeah, I noticed that." Ben's face flushed with rage, but he knew there wasn't a thing he could do. He was powerless now. "But I didn't come here to talk about Chloe," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I just wanted to remind you of something. Remember when you said the rules didn't apply to people like you? That what's illegal for me is perfectly fine for someone with your connections. Well, look at you now, sitting here in a jumpsuit. Seems like the rules caught up with you after all." Ben was trembling with anger, but I wasn't done yet. "Before I go, I wanted to leave you with a little something. Both Chloe and Sarah thought you might find it enlightening." I handed him a folded piece of paper. He opened it, stared at it for a moment, then looked up at me, confused. "What the hell is this?" he growled. I chuckled. "It's a diagram of female anatomy. They thought you might want to know that the arousal point is here," I said, pointing to the diagram with a smirk. Leaving him fuming in his rage, I walked out of the prison, feeling the satisfaction of having had the last word. "Have a great day."